talking to everyone who had to get in touch with him and even showing me the video where the alert level raised from 2 to 3, meaning magmatic unrest. So if that isn't a sign that every time we take care of, every time we schedule PHIVOLCS, medyo may sign, no? Of course, nakikiramay po tayo sa lahat ng nakapaligid sa Kanlaon na ngayon na displays and hope we can do more for them, no? Sorry. Secretary Solidum is also here. Mr. Secretary, thank you po for being here. Mr. President, so the following have amendments, individual amendments to propose. Senator Legarda, Senator Pimentel, Senator Pia Cayetano, myself, and Senator Villanueva. So everyone else asked me to read their amendment. So may we first recognize Senator Villanueva, who will propose his amendment.
Mr. President,
Senator Villanueva is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, and appreciate the openness of our distinguished sponsor in this particular measure. May I know, Mr. President, if we're going to do page by page, or will I just make my amendments, introduce my amendments, Mr. President, because I have one on page 3, one on page 7, and one on page 11, Mr. President.
What does the sponsor say?
Yes, Mr. President, ideally we'll go line by line, pero nag-submit naman po lahat ng kasamahan natin and all naman were acceptable to PHIVOLCS. So not only can we permit Senator Villanueva, but can you also permit me to read it by senator instead of by line to line? But it's not complicated.
The secretariat might get lost, so we have to go page by page, section by section, line by line. And the good sponsor can simply acknowledge where the proposed amendment came from. And Senator Villanueva can interject whenever his amendment will be affected as an antecedent amendment.
Yes. So I submit to that, Mr. President. I have another briefer pala na by line din. So una talaga po si Senator Villanueva dahil section 3
On page 3, Mr. President, may I
On page 3,
my amendment, Mr. President? If there are no ulterior amendments, I'm on page 3, Mr. President, line 4. This is on section 3 of the objectives. Page 3, line 4, after the word services, remove the word and on the same page, between lines 4 and 5, insert a new subsection, letter G, which shall read as follows: to provide opportunities for continuous learning and improvement of the knowledge, skills, and capacities of PHIVOLCS personnel. I so move, Mr. President.
what does the sponsor say?
Mr. President, we accept because this will align with the objective and with other provisions geared towards the continuous enhancement of the capacity of PHIVOLCS personnel.
Thank you, Mr.
Any objection? There being none, the proposed amendment, having been accepted by the author, is hereby approved. And I might add, for the succeeding subsections to be renumbered accordingly.
Yes.
So
Thank you,
ordered.
Mr. President. Sir President, from Senator Pimentel, on page 3, line 25, after the dash, delete the word is. Accepted, Mr. President.
Delete the word is. So it will just say the multi.
Yes, volcanology dash the multidisciplinary study of volcanoes.
Any objection to the proposed amendment? There being none, amendment is approved.
Again, from Senator Pimentel, on page 4, line 19, after the word alignment, replace the word in with the word with.
Any objection? Hearing none, the proposed amendment is adopted.
From Senator Pia Cayetano, on page 4, line 29, after the word has, delete the phrase an advanced and replace with the phrase a, masteral or doctorate.
Any objection? There being none, proposed amendment is approved.
From yours truly, Mr. President, on page 5, line 15, after the word Philippines, delete the comma and the phrase whether active or dormant to, and replace with the phrase that will.
Any objection to the proposed amendment? There being none, amendment is approved.
From Senator Pimentel on page 6, line 25, after Philippine Commission on Women, insert PCW and close with parentheses.
Page.
Page 6, line 25.
Any objection to the proposed amendment? There being none, amendment is approved.
Again from Senator Pimentel on page 7, line 15, before the word enhance, insert the phrase it shall.
Any objection to the proposed amendment? There being none, amendment is approved.
Yes, Senator Villanueva.
Yes,
please.
Mr. President, on the same page, page 7, line 19, after the word LGUs, add a comma and insert the phrase including their alignment with PhilVox platforms in terms of information sharing and monitoring, among others. I submit to the wisdom of the body and the wisdom of our sponsor, Mr. President.
What
Accept-
does the sponsor say?
Accepted, Mr. President, because this actually ensures coordination of
Yes.
PHIVOX LGUs with, in the various stages of disaster preparedness, and they align with the information sharing that PHIVOX wants. In fact, they're preparing the platforms for a more accurate assessment of ongoing phenomena and the communication
Thank
between.
Any objection to the proposed amendment of Senator Villanueva accepted by the chair, subject to style? There being none, amendment is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, again from Senator Pimentel on page 7, line 30, after the word mitigation, delete the comma.
Any objection? There being none, proposed amendment is approved.
From Senator Legarda on page 8, line 16, delete the word and.
Any objection to the proposed amendment? There
On
being
the-
none, amendment is approved.
On the same page, line 17, insert a new sub-paragraph, open parenthesis, close parenthesis, to be read as collaborate with academic institutions and research organizations by providing technical assistance, sharing data and resources, and supporting studies that promote disaster risk reduction and resilience, and in quotation marks.
Any objection to the proposed amendment? There being none, amendment
Please-
is approved.
Please include, Mr. President, relettering the remaining sub-paragraphs.
Any objection? There being none, amendment is approved.
So, on page 10, line 5, from Senator Pia Cayetano, delete the phrase "in consultation with the DBM" and replace with "subject to the review and approval of the DBM in accordance with existing Civil Service Commission laws, rules, and regulations."
Any objection to the proposed amendment? There being none, amendment is approved.
Mr.
Senator
President?
Villanueva.
Senator Villanueva is
Mr.
recognized.
President, on page 11, between lines 18 and 19, insert a new sub-paragraph, letter D, which shall read as follows: other facilities that aim to improve and enhance the dissemination of public information, education, and advocacy on hazards and risks. I submit, Mr. President.
What does the sponsor say?
Accepted, Mr. President.
Thank
Any
you, Mr.
objection to the
President.
proposed amendment of Senator Villanueva as accepted by the author and sponsor? There being none, amendment is approved.
And renumber accordingly, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, dear colleague.
Noted.
Sir President, from Senator Pimentel on page 13, line 1, after the phrase administration of, insert the words, just a minute, Mr. President. Tama ba? Latest conversion. Okay. Insert the words, the phrase, the Basis Conversion and Development Authority, and thereafter enclose the BCDA within parentheses.
Any objection to the proposed amendment? There being none, amendment is approved.
And still on the same line, after the words Clark Special Economic Zone, insert the word CESA enclosed with parentheses, CEZA.
Any objection to the proposed amendment? There being none, amendment is approved.
From yours truly, Mr. President, on page 13, delete lines 10 to 14, the entire section on procurement of scientific and technical material, equipment, and services, and number the subsequent sections accordingly.
Any objection to the proposed amendment? There being none, amendment is approved.
From Senator Pimentel on page 13, line 25, subsection C, delete the words waiver of, then after the word restriction, delete the word for, and insert the words on designated. Next, on line 26, after the word equipment, add a comma and insert the phrase as identified, and thereafter delete the phrase that may be indicated, and lastly, after the word FIVOX, add a comma, and thereafter the phrase may be waived.
Any objection to the proposed amendment? There being none, amendment is approved. For clarity, distinguished sponsor, can you now read how the section, can you now recite how the section will read?
May I continue for two more amendments, then we'll read the whole section.
Okay. On the same section.
On the same section.
The gentleman may proceed.
On the same page, line 27, section D, after the word clearance, insert the word for imported equipment shall be granted.
Any objection to the proposed amendment? There being none, amendment is approved.
And on page 14, line 1, subsection E, delete the words immediate release of. Then after the word equipment, insert the words required during. Then delete the phrase where there is. And lastly, after the word eruption, add the phrase shall be immediately released.
Any objection to the proposed amendment? There being none, amendment is approved.
So, Mr. President, Section 19 shall be read this way. Section 19, simplification of documentation requirement. Letter C, economic prohibition and restrictions on designated categories of special. Just a minute, Mr. President. Yung red as is na? Read it as is na? Oh, yung red kasama. Okay. So, Mr. President, letter C, economic prohibitions and restrictions on designated categories of special goods and equipment, comma, as identified by the FIVOX, comma, may be waived. Letter D, clearance from imported equipment shall be granted without regard to the country of origin or the country from which the goods have arrived, subject to monitoring for reasons of public health and security. And letter E, urgent and necessary monitoring equipment required during an ongoing volcanic eruption shall be immediately released. So there are some punctuation marks there. I will submit
Approved,
it to
subject to style.
that's it, Mr. President. May I have a 1-minute suspension just to confer with the Majority Leader?
Session is suspended for a minute. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, after conferring with Minority Leader with no other individual amendment, I move to close the period of individual amendments.
Any objection? Hearing none. Period of individual amendments is now closed. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, considering the importance of this
Senator
bill
Cayetano is recognized.
and the urgency, may I ask the Majority Leader if it's his pleasure to proceed to submit this bill on second reading to our colleagues?
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move to approve on second reading House Bill number 2825. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Motion is approved. Congratulations, Senator Cayetano.
Thank you to all the
Majority
authors
Leader.
and congratulations, DOST, FIVOX. Thank you for your patience.
Mr. President, I move to suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 2825. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the aforementioned bill is now suspended. Thank you to our technical team from VIVOX as well. Majority
Mr.
Leader.
President, I seek a 1-minute suspension.
Session is suspended.
Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 2818 under Committee Report number 319. This is the bill on the National Housing Authority Act. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection to the motion? There being none, motion is approved.
Ano na, dito na.
Sisingit lang ako yung pilatong lang para 2 minutes sponsorship.
The distinguished sponsor of the measure, Senator Marcos, is recognized to receive questions from our distinguished minority floor leader, the Honorable Senator Pimentel. The lady and the gentleman both have the floor. And for the information of the sponsor as well as the minority leader, after this, we will proceed directly with the barangay without changing the characters who have the floor as well. Just for your information. The gentleman from Marikina, the Honorable Minority Floor Leader, is recognized and may proceed with his interjections.
Thank you very
Thank
much, Mr. President, Minority Leader. We will do our best to answer your queries.
With the permission of our sponsor, the title of the bill is an act strengthening the National Housing Authority by extending its corporate term and rationalizing its powers, repealing Presidential Decree Number 757 Series of 1975 as amended and for other purposes. Is this the title of our working draft, Mr. President?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so as revealed in the title, we are now part of the ideas in the bill is the extension of the corporate term of the NHA. So when is the NHA's existing or current corporate term to expire, Mr. President?
July 31 of 2025. So that's a full 50 years.
So naka 50 years na pala siya, but that's around 7 months from now.
That's correct.
Okay, so kailangan ng aksyon na ito whether the NHA deserves an extension of its charter or not. What is the proposal about the extension? How long?
The proposal is that it be extended for another 50 years.
Another 50 years.
However, we are of course aware of the changing position of the Department of Finance. In the beginning, the DOF was opposed to the extension given the very poor performance and the low collection. However, I am in receipt today of a new position paper supporting the extension of the corporate life of NHA.
So before, to support the Department of Finance's original position, what reasons were given by the DOF?
Yes, the DOF explained that in fact...
First one.
Sorry.
The first one, the first position.
one, yes.
Yeah,
They, in fact, explained that the collection was so poor, that the performance was so low, that in fact the delivery was substandard, and that they in fact were encroaching upon the financial capabilities and functions of other agencies under the housing cluster. So they indicated that there should be, in fact, a reorganization, and that the 5 other agencies that are involved in financing should be rationalized as well, given that they seem to be encroaching upon each other's territory.
So that was in the part of the observation of the DOF.
That's
Okay.
correct.
So did the DOF give us specific scenarios where the NHA's mandates and responsibilities conflicted with the other agencies, and which are these other agencies?
Yes, the DOF mentioned 2 agencies, and these were the Social Housing Finance Corporation as well as the mother agency, the DSUD itself. In actual fact, there are several other agencies also involved in financing: National Home Mortgage Finance Corporation, Home Development Mutual Fund or Pag-ibig Fund, the Housing and Land Use Regulatory Board, as well as the Human Settlements Adjudication Commission, although the last 2 can be said are not entirely in the finance, not squarely financing bodies.
Okay, so na-justify po ng Department of Finance to oppose the bill, no? The extension of the charter.
Yun ang umpisa po
yes,
nila. Nag-umpisa sila sa ganon. Pagkatapos, they recommended na lang sa bago, sa ikalawa na natanggap nga natin ngayon. Ang sabi na lamang nila, streamline na lang at ibalik yung NHA sa original functions at isoli na lang doon sa social housing finance, sa DSUD at ito nga mga binabanggit kong iba para i-restructure na lang lahat ng financing. Kasi may nabanggit pa yung NHA noon na sila'y mag-i-issue ng bonds. At doon kinabahan na ng todo yung DOF.
Okay, so with the DOF's new position, will the DOF's recommendation be covered already by the bill under consideration, or do we need to extensively amend the said bill so that we can let's say if we want to accommodate the suggestions of the DOF,
Yes,
we need to amend?
I believe that we probably have to put amendments in to explicitly order a restructuring in financing. Right now, the bill only, in the main, has 3 changes. Unang-una, yung extension of term, yung another 50 years, yung ikalawa, yung 5 to 10 billion yung capitalization, at yung ikatlo, yung disaster housing function. Basically, 3 lang talaga yung nasa bill. Pero itong inuutos ng DOF na magkaroon ng restructuring is well taken po.
Akala ko po pinapasimple pa nga ng DOF yung panukalang batas, kasi ang sabi ng DOF ibalik si NHA sa original
Yes, to their
function
core
niya,
functions.
which is
That's right.
What is can we state now for the record what was the original core or primary function why the NHA was created?
Yes, 50 years ago, it was established as the sole national agency mandated to embark on housing production for low-income families. Sila yung production arm. They were meant to be in the business of building low-cost housing.
So housing production for the poor.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, yun na po. Okay, so kung let us say we will return and refocus the NHA to its original mandate, wala pong, the sponsor will not mind if we make sure that the bill will bring the NHA back to that. Focus
think
lang
that-
siya doon to be the builder, not the financier.
I believe we can come up with amendments, and I would be agreeable simply because several other agencies are now actually constructing homes for the poor, as it were. The department, the SUD, is also building the new program called 4PH for low-income Pag-ibig members. It's also very clear that EO 138 issued in 2021, although allegedly withdrawn, is being executed with partnerships with the LGUs, so that the LGUs, in many cases, are also building on their own low-cost housing for their own residents. So I believe restoring NHA to its core function would really be useful as well.
Yes, so let's make the NHA the sole national government agency involved in the production of housing units for the poor. Pwede natin gawin yun. But
The definition of the poor would have to
Yes.
be also
Ayusin natin
clarified
yan.
dahil kasi po, yung poor, meron rin sa local government, meron rin sa DSUD. Ang sinasabi, yung NHA dapat tutukan lang yung lowest 30% income decile, in many cases, not even Pag-ibig members. Sila yung target beneficiaries. In order that we differentiate from DSUD, which are all Pag-ibig members, kahit low income.
okay, so at least, okay, so even if, okay, sa pagdating naman sa LGU, they are not national. Yun yun.
Tama.
So, si NHA is the national,
Parang
a government
nakiki-partner
agency.
lang sila sa
We do not
NHA.
mind kung si LGU
Tama.
may sariling initiative for the poor, the lowest 30%
Income decile.
income decile. O sige. So, we will not mind kung LGU kasi local government ka na. Pero pagdating sa national government, meron na tayong clear na sa mind natin. NHA housing production as far as for as long as your beneficiaries are the lowest 30% income decile.
That's right.
And then beyond that or above that, we will allow other national government agencies to also be housing production units for
Yes,
those
I
above
believe
the 30.
the DSUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Settlements, is already embarking upon the 4PH program for housing. And they are significantly more expensive than the low monthly amortization of NHA. This would also justify the extension of term of corporate life of NHA because they would be differentiated in that case.
But why do we have a department actually building houses? Akala ko kaya nga nag-create tayo ng separate corporate entity. Doon siya sa housing production, and then we want yung mas may kaya pa magbayad, si department ngayon ang naging housing production unit, Mr. President.
Yes, that is correct.
Why?
Also,
What is the parang
I
justification?
also questioned that occurrence, and I actually asked the secretary the same, that in fact, there's a duplication perhaps of the production of housing for low-income families, and the 4PH program is what he pointed to, and he said that they were low-salary income earners, or at least members of Pag-ibig. But I have still doubts in my mind because my understanding is DSUD is only for policy and planning. They are supposed to come up with a national housing plan. Ang alam ko, planning and policy ang nasa mandate ng DSUD. So, medyo nalilito ako kung bakit
Kasi,
sila
okay.
nagpapatayo din.
Ang government ba ay mayroong business to build houses for those who can afford to buy from the market? Wala na, di ba? Wala na, di ba? Kasi si government magbibuild ng houses for the homeless who will have difficulty acquiring their homes from commercial developers. Ganun po ba? Is that our idea?
Yes, my understanding, or at least the original conception for the SUD was for it to be the lead for policy and planning, only for policy in housing development, but not to embark on actual housing
Correct.
and building. That was my
Correct.
understanding.
Kaya nga, kung papasok si gobyerno in building houses, it must be for, quotation marks na natin, the poor.
That's
Tama?
correct.
It must be for the poor. Wala na tayong pakialam kung anong
Decile.
anong decile yun, basta for the poor.
Ang-
So, and it must only be one sole national government agency, and let it be, if we decide on that, let it be the NHA.
That's correct. I believe so. But the argument of the SUD is that the housing gap is so large and their target beneficiaries are also poor. They are low-salaried income earners and members of Pag-ibig. So they're a little bit above the 30% NHA market, but they also are poor.
No, kasi nga we are accepting the 30% decile
Yes.
kasi, but we can release the NHA from that limitation.
Correct.
If we agree that we will have one national government agency for housing production for
That's correct.
for those who are to be helped by the government.
Yes, there could be, in fact, there could be varieties of housing. Yung
Correct.
talagang socialized housing, for example, for those being relocated or resettled from the Manila Bay Area in accordance with the Supreme Court Mandamus Order from 2008. For example, NHA, klaro po yun.
Opo.
O, tapos wala talaga silang kakayahan, lilipat sila sa iba't ibang probinsya. So, klaro yun na NHA talaga. Pero yung pinapasukan ng 4PH, mas nakakaangat doon. Pag-ibig member na nga sila, so may contract of employment, at sila ay...
Bakit?
Ang binibigay lang sa kanila, ang justification ng DSUD, ang binibigay lang daw dito sa mga pag-ibig members na low salaried, interest lang. Interest subsidy lamang ang binibigay. Samantalang, outright subsidies ang binibigay sa pagbayad ng NHA. Iba naman daw. Pero in terms of your question, why is the SUD building when the sole mandated agency is NHA? I am also at a quandary, in a quandary as to the answer.
Kaya nga, now is our chance to put order to the scheme of things. We have to put order.
Perhaps Senator Ejercito, who was present at the outset of all these changes, can enlighten us.
Yes, Mr. President, may I be recognized?
Call a friend po.
Yes, Senator Hurst.
Yes, being the principal sponsor and author of the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, our aim was really to put all the different housing agencies concerned with housing under one roof. That is why we passed the law creating the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development in 2019. And NHA is one of the agencies that is now under the DSUD. No? And NHA is the construction arm of the department right now. No? They are the agencies tasked to build and construct houses for the lowest end. Yun na nga po yung binanggit kanina ni Senator Amy, our sponsor. Ito po yung mga relocatees from the danger zones, dito po sa Mandabo, sa Manila Bay, and other informal settler families, no, who need to be relocated. So yun po ang task ng NHA. But now there is a program that's the 4PH under Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development. This will cater to the lower and I think up to the middle income class, Your Honor, Mr. President. So the NHA will cater to the lowest income. And ito po'y talagang halos walang, these are the ones who have the minimum capacity to pay. Kaya nga po, ito po yung halos subsidized na po. But they still have to pay. No? Wala na kong libre ngayon, so that the government will be able to recover something so that they will be still continue to build houses, considering that our backlog now stands at about 6 million houses, Your Honor, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Senator Ejercito. At least nakapag-call a friend ako. Kasi nalilito na po ako dahil ang pagkaintindi ko, yung poorest talaga ang NHA. Pero given that the housing gap is exploding, it's really become even 7 million at the rate they're counting, there's still room for the SUD to engage the private sector builders. At least kikita sila dyan at hindi masyadong subsidized ng gobyerno. At pumapayag yung developer, contractor, financier, service provider, all the private sector are happy to build at a higher standard, at a higher cost, rather than embarking on the NHA socialized housing market na halos wala silang kikitain, talagang abonado pa.
Okay, so ang NHA, although builder of houses yan, hindi yan by administration, hindi yan in-house ang ating mga workers sa gobyerno. You also bid it out. NHA also bids out the projects.
That's my understanding
Okay.
po. There
So-
have been different announcements from the department secretary. Nung una, humihingi siya ng pera at nabalitaan pa natin yung sovereign guarantee, kaya medyo na-agitate lahat ng tao. Pero sa kabila nun, ang sabi niya, kukuha na lang siya ng tulong mula sa mga private developers, ambag-ambag na lamang daw at makikipartner and bid out all these housing programs.
Hindi, para lang po maintindihan natin, back to NHA, ito yung chart, ito yung
That's right.
binibigyan natin ng corporate term, life term. Si NHA, hindi siya mismo ang nagbi-build ng houses. Siya ang agency na nagbi-bid out ng contracts
That's right.
to build houses.
That's correct.
Therefore, hindi ba ang therefore, ibig sabihin nun, may pumapatol sa contracts being offered by the NHA
That's
na
correct.
private entities.
There are private
The-
entities.
Therefore, sa mata nila, kikita rin sila from the contracts being offered by the NHA.
Pero ang nangyari kasi, talagang kinakailangan ng subsidy. Yung ginagawa kasi, halimbawa, yung relocati, kinakailangan magkaroon muna ng social preparation, consultation. Lahat ayaw lumipat eh. So
Correct.
mahabang proseso yun, paggagastusan yun. Tapos logistical support. Halimbawa yung sa Manila Bay, ayaw nila magsialisan, pupunta sa mga iba't ibang probinsya, sa Rizal, sa Laguna, kung saan. Pahirapan din yon sa relocation and resettlement. Tapos maghahanap ng bagong hanap buhay, may livelihood, community facilities dun sa bagong lugar. Hindi naman pwedeng i-pass on yun at yung land development sa private developer. Ang ibibid out mo, yung bahay lang mismo. Pero yung i-absorb lahat ng cost sa paglilipat, pag may calamity, pag living in a dangerous area or waterways or na-expropriate sa right-of-way ng public works, mahirap i-absorb lahat ng socialized housing developer. Papatulan niya yung kontrata pero hindi lahat ng gastos. Kailangan talaga yung gobyerno magbo-bolt in doon sa iba't iba pang gastos.
Can I
Mr.
intercede?
President, Senator Villar.
Yes, please.
Senator Villar.
Who will
Ito,
finance,
lifeline na po to, hindi na call a friend.
who will finance the activity of NHA? Will,
Kaya,
will the government give them money or they will get it from investor?
yes, ang gobyerno po ang nagbibigay at nagsasubsidize dito sa mga gastos na
Ano,
lihis na. Iba't
magkano
iba
ang binibigay na budget ng gobyerno?
ang budget ng gobyerno, 2 billion. 2 billion siya ngayon, pero nakaranas siya nung time ni na Presidente Duterte at ni Presidente Aquino na napakalaki. Kasi tinamaan ng Yolanda, pagkatapos noon yung Marawi
Magkano
Sea,
noon?
lumaki ng andito, nasa, malaki kasi noon eh. Yung time na yon nasa 50, umabot ng 50. Naalala ko, yung time na yon umabot po ng nasa, ano na yung total niyan? Ano ba yung pinakamalaki dito? Ang pinakamalaki ay 2016, 2014, 32 million, 2016, 38
32
billion. Yeah, billion, sorry.
Billion.
30 billion, 2013, Yolanda yon. 32, 2014, 38, 2016. Yun ang pinakamalalaki.
Tapos,
Lumaki na naman, 2020, naging 8.5. Bahagi na to ng Marawi. At saka pagkatapos nun lumiit na eh. 2023 at saka ngayon, nasa 3 or 2 billion na lamang per year.
so how many houses yung ganon? 2 billion, 3 billion?
26? Nasa 2,000 lang ang napapatayo nila dahil maliit na lang yung budget
So,
daw.
wala na.
Halos wala na.
Wala na. So, what's the use?
What's the use?
Hindi ba dapat ang gobyerno, you will provide for the poor,
Yes.
diba? And the homeless. Bakit pupunta tayo sa middle class? Middle class can buy from the private sector. Dapat ang pera ng gobyerno for the poor.
For
and
the poor naman
homeless.
po to. Ito yung mga
Oo
for the
nga,
poor
pero
talaga.
kung 2 billion na lang, 2,000 houses, sabi mo, backlog 7 million.
Yeah, grabe ang backlog. Pero andyan pa rin ang pangangailangan, yung mga
So
nasalanta
parang
ng
mali
bagyo.
yata ang ginagawa nila na ini-emphasize nila yung
4 PH.
4 PH kesa yung for the poor.
Totoo yan.
I'm sure yung backlog na yan, sa poor yan, hindi yan sa middle class.
Oo, malaking-malaki. For example, dun sa Supreme Court, Mandamus, yung 2008, I think nasa 26,000 houses pa lamang ang napapatayo. Samantalang yung actual need, tinatansya nila sa 300,000.
Oo.
Ang layo sa realidad eh.
So I think when we review NHA, we should review the should also. We cannot just review NHA.
In isolation.
It should be the whole housing industry. Kasi masyadong malayo. Kasi kung 2,000 lang a year, kailan natin masosolve ang problem? Yun ang problema, yung mahihirap, hindi naman yung middle class. The middle class can buy from the private sector.
That's right.
diba?
Sa nakikita ko nga ngayon, maraming recommendation, maliban pa dito sa extension lamang ng corporate life, marami talagang dapat paltan eh. Kasi nagbago na nga at ang layo-layo sa realidad ng napapatayo nila. Unang-una, totoo bang makakakolekt pa nung 15 billion ng NHA? Ang baba-baba ng koleksyon nila. At saka yung iba, yung karamihan, 15 years old na. Palagay ko wala nang balak, mas maigi pa. Off
But
the
they
books
cannot
na,
get the
i-condone na yan.
title.
Yes,
They cannot get the title without paying NHA.
Ayun na nga,
so
kaya nga
that's the problem.
i-condone na rin nila, di ba? I-condone na lang ng NHA kung talagang yung sobrang mahirap. Kasi nung umpisa, marami doon,
They can afford, it's 500 a month lang eh.
lumulobo po after 11 years. That's the problem. The first 10 years, 200 pesos hanggang 500 pesos.
I think they
Pag-
can afford it.
pag,
ang ano lang, hindi mahigpit ang NHA to collect.
Marahil.
Kasi yung ganong amount, kahit sino na mahirap can afford that. Ang problema, hindi naman sila, dapat magpo-foreclose din.
Sa palagay,
Para mapuwersa sila magbayad. Di ba?
medyo
Kasi pag
malupit
hindi
po
mo tinakot sa
mag-foreclose
foreclosure,
yung
hindi
iba.
magbabayad.
I think kailangan isa-isahin kasi iba-iba yung problema nila. Nakita ko sa breakdown nila, yung may mga 15 years hindi nagbabayad. Palagay ko, kailangan suriin maigi kung talagang may balak magbayad. At saka tignan kung nakatira pa ron. Pagkatapos siguro dapat i-explore na natin yung extended lease. Yung mahaba na lang na lease imbes na bibilhin pa. Kasi may lupa yun eh. Pag bumalik sa gobyerno yun, we still have the fighting chance of actually rebuilding and improving the site and giving it to others who are perhaps still poor, whereas the original owners, baka nakaahon na yun sa kahirapan
tingin
kahit
ko,
paano.
kasi we have done it, plenty of it in Las Piñas. Those who are not paying can afford to pay. It's just that you are not forcing them to pay. Oo. Kasi if you have a house in Las Piñas, you're just paying 500. You will pay for it. Pag kinuha nyo yung lupa, mapupersa silang magbayad. Oh, kasi kaya naman eh.
Before that, Minority Leader, may I ask one question to the sponsor?
Bigyan mo sa akin.
Madam Sponsor. Ano
I
po-
agree. I agree. Talagang totoo yun. Ano nga ba yun? Hindi, yung sa bayaran.
Yeah, Madam Sponsor, ano po ginagawa ng, what action has the NHA taken dun sa mga delinquents? Yung sinasabi niya 15 years na hindi na nagbabayad, ano action ang ginagawa nila, ang ginawa nila?
Yes, they've actually undertaken the contracting of professional private collection agents. And in the two cases involved in Region 3, lumaki naman ang collection nila. They got two companies that are professional collectors. Mukhang nag-improve naman to at ito yung pilot model nila para sa Region 3 ngayon. Pero mukhang palalawakin naman nila. Ang problema, sa palagay ko, tulad ng sinabi ni Senator Villar po, kinakailangan suriin ng maigi yung mga utang, lalong-lalo na yung mga 15 years old and above. Yung iba, ang pagkaintindi nila, talagang subsidized, ibig sabihin wala nang utang yun. Ang pagkaintindi nila, wala nang bayaran. Yung iba naman, inaakala, talagang kayang-kaya nila, pero pag umabot na ng 11 taon, naku, lumalaki na yung bayarin, ayaw na, hindi na daw kaya. Kaya't meron po ako na tinitignan, mabuti siguro mag-condone ng iba, yung iba naman talagang magkaroon na ng eviction. Kapag talagang kaya na, di palayasin na, hindi naman tama yung ganon. May bill po ako na sinasabi kapag hindi nagbayad ni minsan, nako, hindi pwede yung ganon. O di kaya yung iba naman, inabandon na yung lugar, nasa ibang lugar. O binigay naman sa third-party owner. Dapat i-foreclose na sa lalong madaling panahon at ilipat na sa iba na mas may kakayahan at karapatan na lumipat. So I think all those issues need to be threshed out first before we can go through the 15.156 billion, which clearly more than 10 years yung 6 billion doon.
Wala bang orientation na nangyayari bago sila tanggapin ng NHA? Di ba sila ino-orient?
Yes, mahaba-haba yung orientation nila. Kaya lang, at the end of the day, a great number of them don't really want to move. Yung iba napilitan lang dahil talagang right of way na expropriate yung lugar. O di kaya na-deklarang danger zone. Or else napilitan lang dahil sa Manila Bay Mandamus Order. So to a great extent, they're very, very reluctant relocatees.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Sponsor. Minority Leader, you can continue.
Well,
Thank you.
ulitin ko po, no, this is our chance to put some order or some sense into what is happening in the housing sector na imagine NHA for 50 years ng experience nila in building houses. I mean, dapat expert na sila dyan sa building houses for the poorest of the poor. Dapat pag sinabi, kahit yung mga members ng Pag-ibig, dapat kaya na nilang gawa ng bahay po yan with 50 years of experience. I really cannot understand why we have to differentiate eh. Basta dapat at the national level, isa ang national government agency, ikaw ang taga-build ng housing units.
Tama po. Katulad ng TESDA.
Kaya mong i-adjust.
Yes.
Si 500 pesos a month, ito ang specs ng kasi ganito rin yung terms. Ito naman sa mga Pag-ibig members, ito rin ang
naman.
so may mga choices. I mean unless wala ngang natutunan si NHA sa 50 taon, Mr. President. Ano pa ba ang tunay na
Ang sinasabi
estado ng NHA?
Ang sinasabi ng NHA, kapag 2 billion at 2 billion lamang ang binibigay ng ating budget para sa kanila, talagang mapapako sila sa 2,000 bahay taon-taon. Hindi talaga nila kaya palawakin yan. Dahil kulang na kulang talaga yung pondo. Walang kakagat na kontratista. Kailangan mag-layout talaga sila. Sila muna mag-land development. Sila maglagay ng yung pagtuturo, community facilities. Kailangan gumastos ang gobyerno bago magsilipat
Ang NHA po ay nag-ooperate under a corporate operating budget.
That's
Tama po?
correct.
So 2 billion is parang subsidy, government subsidy.
That's
But
right.
how much is the actual total annual COB of NHA?
32?
For 2024, for example, itong taon na ito. 2 billion din yung kanyang subsidy. Sige.
It's roughly 40 billion.
40 billion.
Given their collections and
40
the other revenues.
So 40 billion plus 2 ba yun o including the 2 billion?
That's already including
O
the
sige,
2B.
tanggalin natin si 2B. So 38 billion internally generated funds of the NHA. Paano nila na-generate po yon? 38 billion. Are these actual cash or sa paper lang as if meron silang revenues?
Yes, they have some collections, they have trust funds, and they have They have collections, they have a trust fund. There's also some funding that derives from DOTR and DPWH because of the right-of-way expropriation balances.
So, 38 plus 2, 40 billion. Ginagamit po lahat yan for the mandate of the NHA. Kaya nga, so magkano po yung, ilan po yung kanilang personnel at magkano po ang gastos nila sa personnel? Kada
Yes.
taon. Example lang.
Yes, right
Kunyari.
now, they have a total of 3,000 employees, of which only 1,647 are plantilla. There has been a mass resignation given the end of its corporate term. Nahihirapan sila talaga humawak ng empleyado. How much is your fee?
Let's say, kunyari po sa 2024 budget, COB na 40 billion, magkano po doon ang pangsweldo?
2.8 billion yata ang more or less ang kanilang plantilla at PS.
Okay, so ang balanse natin ay 37.2. O magkano naman po siguro yung mga utilities or other, yung mga hindi mo na related sa actual building of houses?
MOE. Saan yung MOE? Asan yung MOE? Yung MOE nila nasa 1.6 billion. Ang kanilang capital ay nasa 4 billion. Tama ba to? Ay, parang ang konti.
Bakit ka? Oh. Sige po, ganito ang tanong na lang, magkano po sa 40 billion na ito tunay, di ba? Tunay po to for 2024,
Yeah.
40 billion pesos in corporate operating budget ang NHA. Magkano po ang kanilang i-dedicate sa 40 billion for the construction of actual housing units? Tapos i-divide.
35.7 billion
Okay, divide.
actually goes to housing. That's the capital outlay.
Yes, divided by 2,000. Kasi 2,000 units lang yung nagagawa ninyo, sabi ninyo. Laki nun.
Ano, the 2 billion, the 2,000 houses refers only to the 2 billion from GAA.
Okay.
This is other expenditure.
Yes, so given the entire corporate operating budget, how many housing units are they targeting to build every year?
Yes, roughly 35,000 at this rate.
Correct, kasi parang a million, ano?
Yes, a million.
A million per unit. Okay. For the a million per unit, okay.
Yes.
And that is supposed to just represent what is that supposed to represent ba? Kaya nga, to be fair, to be really fair, kasi bigla ko naisip, 1 million yung housing unit, but it may not be accurate eh.
It comes
What
out.
is it? What is the 1 million for?
The 1 million is not just construction. The construction is probably, if I have to estimate, would probably a little over 600,000. But it includes the social
Yes,
preparation,
yan.
livelihood, putting up of community facilities, all the other.
Lupa. Kasali na lupa.
and in many cases, the land as
Kasama
well.
ng lupa.
Oo. Kung minsan yung LGU ang sumasagot eh. Oo.
Okay, so
Madami kasi silang land development, logistical support sa paglipat. Yun, yung mga gastos na yon. Siguro
so ganun
out
yung-
of the 1 million, siguro mga 635,000 daw ang per unit.
the structure. Sige, okay. Sige po.
Right now, you were inquiring po about the vacancies and the number of employees. Because of the end of their corporate life, they have been enduring all kinds of mass resignations given the apprehension that NHA will wind down. And perhaps 56 to 44,000 vacancies now exist. Nangangalahati na lang yung kanilang working force.
Sa 50 years na existence ng NHA, ilang housing units na po ang per their records ang kanilang na-construct?
Yes, it's about 1.269 million houses.
Sa loob ng 50 taon.
Yes.
Apa. Ilan po, di ba ano yan, di ba ano yan, when the NHA constructs, ano yan, parang mga settlements yan, ano? Hindi
That's
naman
correct.
Yan, hindi naman yan you construct one house in an area, in a subdivision, magko-construct ka, hindi. So, settlements. So itong 1.269 housing units comprise how many settlements? Or projects?
2,722 projects. And the resettlement program encompasses a big part of that. About 40% involve the informal settlers in danger areas, right-of-way, the Supreme Court mandamus, the regional resettlements. Pagkatapos, 571 projects are the housing programs for calamity victims, 92 for AFP-PNP, and the rest is for settlement upgrading, site services, and other programs.
Ano, tita? Oo nga eh. Hingi po kami ng parang summary.
Yes, I'm happy to share this with you.
All the information na naandun na.
This is all the information
Yes.
that I have right now. I'm happy to share.
Senator, we will share, patingin mo na, then pa-xerox na lang natin. Actually, maybe we can have this photocopied immediately,
po.
so all those times 24 na.
So yun nangyayari, ang karamihan talaga, almost half are resettlement. Ang lumulobo ngayon, yung calamity housing, yung emergency housing, yun ang talagang lumalaki at labis-labis talaga siya in the last few years.
What does that mean, yung calamity? Because those affected will no longer return to their original housing sites?
Yes.
Or when their original housing sites are destroyed by a calamity or a typhoon, the NHA will rebuild on that particular site?
Yes, that's correct po. In Yolanda, for example, large tracts of coastal areas were zoned as non-live and non-build zone. So, hindi na sila pwedeng bumalik doon. Problema yon. Ganon din sa sinasabi nilang man-made or human-induced calamity, yung mga Marawi siege, yung Zamboanga fire. Yun po, hindi na sila pwedeng bumalik sa ibang lugar nung time ng, di ba linabas sila sa ground zero muna dahil may mga mines.
Oh. So, yung sa Yolanda, for example, coastal area siguro yun, na-resettle sila. Are these successful projects? I mean, still being habitated by the beneficiaries as of today?
Hindi pa kompleto. I have to admit that not all have moved. There have been issues about dysfunctioning utilities, walang tubig, walang kuryente. Yun din ang problema sa
Sino
Marawi.
expected nun? When the NHA builds a settlement, bahay, ang interpretation ba nila,
Pero
bahay lang, then hands off na sila? O pati dapat drainage, tubig, kuryente,
Ang sabi ng
paved
NHA,
roads?
98% daw naokupahan na ng mga karapat-dapat lumipat doon sa Yolanda.
Okay. Nasa survey ba itong mga to na masaya ba sila sa pinaglipatan nila?
You go back, yeah.
Ngayon yung, siguro wala, I'm sure wala survey, but yung lumipat, for example, yung ito, para lang maintindihan po natin ang function ng NHA, so resettlement, no?
That's right.
Kasi no build na yung original
Yes.
home site ninyo. Lipat kayo. Anong expectation po nila? What are the financial obligations of those beneficiaries na pinalipat natin to an NHA site because their original housing location is now a no-build zone?
Yes, by and large, when it's a calamity situation, whether it's a war zone or a danger area per our climate specialist, it's an outright grant. Wala na silang babayaran pa. Pero yung obligasyon pa rin ng gobyerno, tulad ng sinabi niyo, tuloy-tuloy. Kasi yung livelihood, wala naman hanap buhay doon, pinaglipat mo. Wala rin community facilities. So tuloy-tuloy yung gastos actually. Dahil wala pang eskwela, walang simbahan, walang makainan, at yung mga sari-sari store at pagbibilahan ng mga gamit. So tuloy-tuloy pa rin yung involvement ng NHA. So till today, there are some properties that have accrued to NHA. Nasa NHA management pa rin hanggang ngayon.
Teka, magulo po. Magulo. That means NHA is beyond... NHA is now beyond building housing units. They are building communities. Ganun po ba?
They are obliged to build some community facilities, such as a school, for example, and so on. But by and large, this is usually turned over to the LGU for management and monitoring.
Yes.
Yes, Senator Ejercito.
Yes, Senator.
Yes, if I, Mr. President, may I be recognized.
Please proceed, Senator Hersto.
Anyway, the housing program of old, no, nung hiwa-hiwalay pa ho ito, we are under the HUDC, no, it was just a coordinating council. All 6 different housing agencies were doing their own thing, their own programs. Iba-iba yung proyekto, hindi po siya moving into one direction. That was the rationale why we created the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development. Yung pong tanong ng ating minority leader, no, yung pong NHA, what in the past, noon po kasi parang compliance lang no, basta lang ho makapag-produce ng so many thousands of houses, even though hindi kino-consider yung hindi kino-consider na malayo sa trabaho, walang utilities, malayo sa mga health services or education sector. In fact, marami po doon sa mga pabahay noon, nasa malayong lugar, no? Liblib mga, halos talaga parang isolated. Kaya nga po nangyayari, naging vicious cycle. What happens is, beneficiaries will be forced to relocate, but in a few months' time, after a few months, dahil walang livelihood, no services, no health services, no education, aalis din po, mag-squat muli. So, yan po nangyayari dati. In fact, before, the occupancy rate of some housing projects were very low. So, that's the reason why we passed this issue, so that the NHA, as well as the other housing agencies of government will now move into one direction at township na po. Kaya po natanong siguro sabi ng sponsor that they are also concerned in dapat po merong near health services, meron pong educational services, so that we will not commit the same mistake as before na talagang para lang makakomply ang gobyerno sa gobyerno na sinabing merong so many thousands of houses were built but the occupancy was low. So yun po
Yes.
ang rationale, yung township
Township,
idea
yes.
na kompleto po.
Tama.
Mr. Chair, thank you po.
To follow on Senator Ejercito's kind explanation, I'd like to clarify that in fact today the NHA doesn't hang around for a long time. They give themselves a 1 to 2 year deadline after the relocatees have actually resettled, and during that period, community structures like a covered court, a market, and so on will be set up. But after 1 to 2 years, they turn over the management of the township or the settlement to the local government.
Yes, okay. So thank you. Ako, open mind naman po ako. Open mind. Kaya nga sabi ko, kung may kailangan tayong ayusin to put
Tama.
order and some clarity. Yes, kung dati nga developer or builder of houses, ngayon, let us say, I agree, kung townships ba ang tawag doon, or communities?
Yes, communities.
Then, okay, we will allow it, pero ingat lang po tayo doon kasi nga mayroon na mga new, kasi kunyari, they will build a marketplace, then turn it over. Meron atang, may commercial part ang, when you build a marketplace, or a market, di ba, yung mga rental ng stalls, may mga ganun na eh. So, may mga ganun na pong mga angle. So,
Tama. Tama.
And then maintenance. I think Senator Alan Peter
President.
Cayetano, Mr. President.
With the permission lang of
Yes,
Senator
please.
Pimentel.
Senator
Yeah.
Cayetano's recognized.
I'm generally supportive of the extension, but naiklaro lang yung purpose at yung
Yes.
hawak nila. But I wasn't going to ask a question anymore, and to be fair, no, the GM, we have been coordinating through our representatives, pero na-shock at na-surprise lang ako doon sa after 1 year, tine-turn over na. Kasi karamihan ng panahon ni President Ferdinand Marcos Sr. na almost 50 years na sa Taguig,
Hindi pa na-
ayaw nyo i-turn over. So, i-correct lang natin yun na sa lahat ng lugar, magwa 1 year i-turn over. In fact, yung last natin pinag-usapan tenement, MOA lang ang pumayag kayo at Yusufrak, hindi turnover. Di ba? So, when we finalize this bill, I think it should be clear. So, tinatanong ko ni Senator Pimentel, ano nangyari sa inyo? Simple lang. Lahat ng may problema, tinurn over nyo sa LGU. Lahat ng asset, hindi nyo tinurn over. That's why ang nasa amin, problema. Ang nasa inyo, yung pwedeng may income generating, it's not fair. 'Di ba? Hindi maayos ng LGU kung ganun yung attitude, 'di ba? So if it's a case per case basis, I will accept that. But if you're saying na yan na yung takbo ninyo, yan na yung inyong I won't even use tenement, Maharlika Village.
Yes.
That is a
Ang
premier
luma-luma.
and ang ganda-ganda ng intention noon, magkatabi, magkapitbahay ang Kristiyano, Muslim at anuman religion. Pero nung nilipat yung Quiapo 2 galing Manila, nagka-problema kami doon. And until now, ayaw naman i-donate ng NHA yung karamihan nung ano. No, you don't have to answer me now. Nag-uusap naman kami. I'm saying it's a matter of policy, di ba? Na iba ata yung sinasabi nilang policy nila na 1 year binibigay at iba actually on the ground. Kasi kami napakarami pang properties ng City of Taguig na nasa NHA.
I just want to interject. Sa amin din,
With
hindi
the
rin
permission of,
tinurn over.
two
Hindi
senators.
rin tinurn over. And in fact, the responsibility of developing the area, the community, nag-rest sa amin. Kami nagpagawa ng kalye, ng market, ng mga homeowner association, covered court, lahat ng improvements sa community kami nagpagawa, hindi NHA. Parang ang binigay lang ng NHA yung lupa na hinuhulugan ng mga bayo.
Parang ganun
Maybe-
din yung paliwanag nila na hindi daw maliwanag kung sino ang may-ari ng lupa. Kasi yun yung mga sinaunang project, yung mga bliss housing, katulad ng sinabi ni Senator Cayetano, yung Maharlika Village, Signal Village.
No, Madam Sponsor, sorry ha.
Yun ang sinasabi
Sabi ko nga,
nila.
hindi nga ako mag-object sa inyo. Kayo may-ari eh. Nasa
Yun na
ilalim
nga,
ng
ang sabi ko
NHA.
nga,
eh.
NHA ang may-ari
Nasa ilalim ng
lupa.
NHA, may titulo yung mga yon, di ba? So, I mean, hindi ako tumayo dito para sabihin i-turn over nyo. Tumayo ako para sabihin, wag nyong sabihin na after 1 year tina-turn over nyo. Kung hindi yun yung policy. And then after Senator Villar stood up, di ba sinabi niya, ganun din sa kanila. Kasi personally, 20 years na ako dealing with you. 1998 to. So ilan years na yon? 26 years na dealing with you. Alam namin kung saan nakatitulo yung mga yon. Bakit kayo magmomowa ng Yusufrak kung hindi sa inyo lupa? Edi criminal charge yon. Nagpanggap pa kayong may-ari.
Okay, I'm not certain that this is right, but they're saying that they're unable to turn over because of the limitations of contract, which are simply a usufruct daw.
No, Madam Chair, I mean, kung ganun din sila,
Yun daw yung kontrata
mag-impake-
sa kanilang mga beneficiaries.
Paano Yusuf Rock?
No,
Di ba pinagdidikta
obviously,
mga
Madam Chair,
beneficiary?
Mr. President, I'm sorry to the sponsor. I know she worked so hard for this. I know urban planning and everything, but obviously the NJ doesn't know what they're saying. If you're the owner of the land at may usufruct ka sa gumagamit ng land mo, you can turn over the land to the LGU. And then now, the usufruct is between the owner of the land, which is the LGU, and yung gumagamit. At saka katulad nung isang hindi nyo tiniturn of kalye. Oh, vacant land, park. Wala naman usufruct yun eh. So, as I said, no, hindi na nga sana ako magtatanong. Pero hindi ko naman tatanggapin na sasabihin nyo dito, after 1 year, ito turn over nyo. Tapos lahat ng nanonood dito, ganun pala. Oh, I'll give you an example na naman, ha. Ito, binabantayan ko to. Sa bagong lipunan condominium at sa tenement, meron kayong open space doon. Nung ang NHA ang namamahala doon, pinayagan nila na mga sabungin ng manok ang pinarada doon. Yung swimming pool, ginawang fish pan na tilapia. Okay. Oh. This year, bago nung budget hearing, ang namamahala na doon ngayon, yung JAL Church. So kung sino man namamahala sa inyo, nilapitan sila, imbis na mag-thank you sa JAL Church, kasi ni-renovate nila ng sarili ng pera at pinapagamit, sinisingil nyo ng 5 years na paggamit nila. Without knowing the history of the place, na bago mag-take over ang JAL doon, ang namamahala doon na taga-NHA, sabungin na mga manok ang nilagay doon. That's an example. Hindi ko na inisa-isa yung budget hearing yon, pero insulto naman siguro sa amin na pupunta kayo dito, sasabihin nyo na pag 1 year, turn over nyo. Oh. Madam Chair, to prove my point, gaano karami pa properties nyo sa City of Taguig?
Okay, ang dinadahilan naman nila, dalawa daw yung request ng Taguig. Una, yung Fort Bonifacio tenement na turnover na raw. Tapos in the works, yung ikalawang request na Maharlika Village.
Ma'am, hindi
Daw.
po nila tinurn over ang tenement. Ang
Oh,
sabi
hindi.
nila, hindi daw nila pwedeng i-turn over. Kaya ang ginawa nila ay MOA kung saan they retain ownership. Pero ang city ang magdi-develop, i-ensure lang na primary ang housing. 'Di ba? Kaya ako napatayo ngayon dahil
pero
sinasabi
yung lupa, hindi pa nilipat.
hindi nila tinurn over. That's why nga hirap lahat ng mga beneficiary like LGU to build what they can build there because ownership matters. Magjo-joint venture din yun eh. Wala nga tiwala yung iba kapag tatlo mag-uusap or kaya NHA. Bakit? Not because of who you are and who you are there now, but because every administration napapalitan kung sino. At hindi lang kung sino yung GM. Sino yung regional director mo, kung sino yung ano mo. And example ko na binibigay sa inyo dyan, yung ina-administer ngayon ng JL na vacant, I forgot what exactly they call that. But anyway, ma'am, I'm not gonna argue. I'm just saying, get your policy together.
Tama.
Diba? So if you're telling me now na ti-turn over nyo pala, ba't ayaw nyo i-turn over yung sa tenement?
Bakit? Ano sabi? Akala ko sabi mo, tinurn over na, hindi pala.
No. It's given a move.
Pero hindi sapat ang MOA para maglipat ng pag-aaral.
No, yung MOA, it said it's a usufruct. You retain the ownership. You just told us kanina here that you don't want to
Sabi mo,
retain the ownership.
usufruct.
Gusto nyo ayusin yung housing, ipapasa nyo. You did not do that. Maybe you want to tell the sponsor, and this is not against UGM, kasi bago kayo. Bago lumabas yung MOA na yan, 10 years ba o 11 years? Kailan na-condemn ang tenement?
10 years daw.
10 years bago nyo nilipat, papel lang, MOA. Kakasabi nyo lang, after the first year, willing na kayong ilipat eh.
Ma'am, ang turnover po namin is the roads and the management.
Tapos?
Yung ownership of the land.
Ang tiniturn over lang din nila sa mga old projects ay yung roads and management. Pero yung lupa, hindi daw
Okay.
tiniturn over.
So maybe I can ask him this, ma'am. And thank you for your patience, Senator Amy. I'm sorry. that you-
Pasensya kasi talagang hindi ko rin masyado
No, but in
naintindihan.
this case, okay, na-condemn yung old project niyo.
Tama, 10 years
Okay.
ago.
So kung gagawa ng bagong housing doon, is that new, is that old?
redevelopment site ang
then you, di ba?
tatawagin. Eh di bago
Oh,
na.
ayaw nyo. Ang gusto nyo, 25 years. Ayaw nyo ibigay. So don't tell me sa old projects lang yun. Kasi new project to eh. I-demolish natin ang buo dahil condemned na eh.
Tama. So dapat bago yun.
So anong sikretong, anong misteryo meron dyan sa ganyan? So dun pa lang tayo dun ha. If we go to Maharlika, if we go to Bagong Lipunan
Bagong
condominiums,
Lipunan.
may property pa kayo sa ano, di ba? Sa pinagsama? Oh, meron pa, di ba? Oh, tinurn over nyo na ba yon? Oh. So, yun lang sa akin, ma'am. I mean, don't ask us for an extension of life. I'm talking to the NHA.
Yes.
And tell us na eto reforms nyo, ibibigay nyo yung lupa, and then hindi yun naman pala totoo. I would have extended you, even if you said, we will keep it, we will develop it. Kasi, babalik ta rin ko naman tanong ko, if you say you're gonna keep it, anong assurance namin na when you're keeping it, you will maintain it? Because you're not maintaining it.
Eh na-condemn nga eh.
Oh, isa sa pinakamalaking mosque, yung mosque sa na-condemn. Oh, isa sa pinakamalaking mosque sa Metro Manila, 'di ba, yung nasa Maharlika Village. Yung harap na part na yun, ni 5, wala kayong ginastos doon over the last 25 years.
Yung Blue Mosque.
Oh, yung Blue Mosque, wala silang ginastos doon. Oh. So anyway, Madam, I want to put that at the feet. And
Yes,
as I
we're
said,
grateful
I
that you
appreciate
put that on
nag-uusap,
record.
pero sana
And-
malinaw yung, kailangan kwentas
Well
claras.
taken.
Diba? Thank
Well
you.
taken.
Thank you.
I'm pleased that you put that on record, and I enjoin the NHA to rectify and explain at the soonest possible opportunity. Magsasubmit sila ng papel upang ipaliwanag kung ano talaga ang pangyayari dyan sa Maharlika Village, pati na rin ang Fort Bonifacio tenement.
Thank you, Senator Alan.
We'll continue, Mr.
Yes,
President. Okay.
please proceed.
Yes, thank you for all of the interventions at namumulat ngayong mga mata natin at marami tayong natututunan. Yung 1.269 housing units na na-construct na po ng NHA over 50 years, lumabas sa mga interventions na ang iba rito, libre, outright grant.
That's
Kasi
right.
ang iba rito, expected na magbayad
That's
si
correct.
beneficiary.
Oo, halo-halo po yan.
Yes, kaya nga po, so
Kaya nga nalilito paski yung tao doon sa collectibles. Inaakala nung iba, outright grant. Yung pala, maniningil. Kaya doon nagkakagulo at yun ang problema natin. Dahil yung iba naman, rinereklamong substandard. Isa pang malaking problema yan, na hindi nalilipatan.
pupuntahan ko po yan. Kaya nga dito sa 1.269 million housing units, meron siguro silang figure ilan ang outright grant.
Ilan ang outright? Itong lahat ng calamity for sure, di ba?
Yes, yes.
So, tapos?
Pare.
Ito, hindi. Resettlement.
Portion ng LGU mo.
Saan? Portion ng? Ano ba ibig sabihin ng RAP LGU?
Assistance.
Ha?
Assistance for LG.
Right. Ano pa? Wala na? Yung danger... Oh, may bayad lahat? Pati mandamus?
Ikaw naman siguro yan.
Ito, okay. Okay, pinaghati naman nila doon sa 1.269 ang outright talagang grant na pinakamalaki, etong tinatawag na calamity victims, 276,456. Outright talaga yon. Tapos, yung RAP LGU, yung tulong sa LGU, wala rin bayad yan, tama ba? Wala rin bayad, 125,003.
What is it? Anong tawag sa programa na yun?
Bakit RAP bakit libre? Resettlement Assistance Program ng LGU, ang tawag sa RAP LGU.
Pero siyempre, ano yan? Mga limitadong numero lang ng LGU yan.
Yes, that's right.
So, paano naman sila ang napili?
Kung sino yung malapit-lapit, safe, may titulo, higit sa lahat, may dokumento, at yung malapit-lapit yung utilities kasi nadala na rin sila na yung walang tubig, walang kakabitan ng kuryente. The other big group would be the indigenous people's housing, that's also outright grant. The former rebels housing, yon outright
Ilan
din
po
yan.
yun? Ilan po yung...
Pero konti lang yon, 16,000 yung sa IP, at saka sa former rebels, 1,218.
Sige, let us say, i-round off ko na, let us say may mga 850,000 units ang na-build na ninyo na meron dapat
May
obligation
bayad.
to pay.
Yes.
Dito po yung manggagaling yung sinabi natin na 15 billion na outstanding collectibles. Doon naman yun.
Yes,
Doon po
that's
yun.
correct.
Doon po yun,
yes,
no? Kasi
yes,
sabay-
the others have no collectibles. That's correct.
Sige, okay, sige po. But yung 15 billion na outstanding receivables ng NHA would not really be just for the cost of building the house. May mga penalties na nakasali doon.
Yes,
Ah, so,
I think
okay.
penalties, interest
Penalties,
payments,
interest,
patong-patong na po.
Nagpatong-patong na. Sige po. Actually, so far sa mga nakakausap naman po natin dito na kapwa natin senador, wala naman outright na against sa proposal to extend the corporate term. Pero I think this is really the right time
Yes.
and the right moment for us to fix in our minds yung the macro level ang tawag doon,
I was-
macro level view
Yes.
on how the different housing agencies should interact with each other and
And the new
their
department.
their specific
Functions, yes po.
and roles.
That's
As
correct.
much as possible, iwas daw natin yung overlap
Or duplication.
redundancy, duplication.
That's correct.
Sayang resources eh.
That's correct. Konti na nga lang yung pera para sa housing,
Correct.
linulustay pa sa iba't ibang ahensya. Tama po yun. Kaya nga, naisip ko, kung 50 years ang bibigay natin na extension, ano kaya na within the next 3 years, halimbawa, gumawa tayo ng bagong restructuring given na meron naman bagong department. Ano ang relasyon nila? Siguro maglagay tayo ng amendment doon. Ako lang naisip
Yes,
ko lang.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Maglagay tayo ng amendment na obligado sila to come up with a new organizational chart, with a new set of guidelines and IRR doon sa loob ng DSUD at lahat ng sanga-sangat niyang financial agencies, iba't iba. Tapos i-explore rin siguro natin yung sinasabing usufruct or long leases. Kapag hindi talaga kaya, para maibalik naman sa gobyerno, ito iba naman ang makinabang. Tapos siguro may level of monitoring doon sa mga substandard. Kasi nakailang beses na tayo nakakarinig ng skandalo, magpapatayo ang gobyerno o yung kontrata ng gobyerno, kontratista ng gobyerno. Tapos taon-taon hindi lilipatan ang dapat lumipat. So maraming issues po talaga na ganon.
Yes, Senator Ontiveros, Mr. President.
Senator Tiveros recognized.
I think the
Salamat,
only
Mr.
intention
President.
at this point was to give ourselves some time to come up with a new schema for all these housing agencies that seem to have proliferated.
Which is my brief interjection, Mr. President, with the kind indulgence of the good sponsor and the minority leader na, in fact, dun pa lang sa DSUD law,
Oo.
required na ang department i-reorganize yung key shelter agencies na hindi pa nagagawa ng department. At isa po sa mga tanong ko, Mr. President, at the proper time sa interpellation ko. Salamat, Mr. President, at sa good sponsor at sa minority leader.
Thank you, Senator Tiveros.
Actually, that's correct. It's in the DSUD law, and that was 2019. And there is actually a time frame. It's time-bound by 2 years after 2019. And nasa 2024 na tayo, hindi pa maliwanag yung mga linya ng mga financing group, ng NHA, at lahat ng grupo ng housing. 2 taon pala, nakita ko time-bound siya at saka dapat measurable output kasi dapat may plano na eh. Ang liwanag naman dito. Furthermore, sa Section 22 ng DSUD, tama po si Senator Ontiveros, within 2 years from the effectivity of the Act, the Secretary, in coordination with the GOCC, shall recommend the restructuring of all the foregoing corporations to eliminate overlaps, if any, in programs, etc., etc.
Yun na nga. So kung ganun nga, so delegated power, pag hindi ginagawa, then the origin of the power must now act. Kasi hindi nga ginawa eh. So tayo, we have to act.
Pwede rin tayo mag-oversight. Kasi nakaka 2 years
ganito
na.
Ganito po question ko. Kasi pinasok na rin ni DSUD ang building of housing units.
Right.
Binibid out din naman itong gawaing ito. Linilimit lang niya sarili niya dun sa mga
Pag-ibig members.
pag-ibig members. But I don't think there is an obstacle na mag-overreach or mag-reach out na rin si DSUD even to the lowest 30% decile. Kung pwedeng gawin ng DSUD yan theoretically, pwede na pala tayo, we can get rid now of NHA, theoretically speaking.
Or NHA could be absorbed more closely under the umbrella of the SUD rather than being a corporation that's separate.
Yes, correct. Ganun nga. So ganun. Kasi theoretically speaking, ganun. Iniba mo lang yung specs eh.
Tama.
The specs of the contract being bidded out. Di ba?
Kasi
This
bago
time-
lang yung DSUD eh. Hindi naman siya 50
Kaya nga.
years old. 5 years old lang siya.
So tama po ba yun? Theoretically speaking,
Pwede ba?
the housing sector can survive even without an NHA because anyway, DSUD is involving itself in the actual building of housing units. Tama po ba yun?
Can I have the handle? Eto nga, babalik na naman tayo dun sa DSUD law. At ang pagkaintindi kasi namin, yung DSUD para sa policy making. At hindi dapat pumasok sa building. Yun nga yung magulo ron eh. Eto nga. Does it have anything to Yes. If you look at Section 4 of the DSUD law, the department shall act as the primary government agency for the management of housing, human settlement, urban policy, the sole and main planning, policy making, regulatory, program coordination, and performance monitoring entity, human settlement, etc. Adopt a national strategy, ensure the alignment of policies and programs. Wala po rito nakalista na magko-construction din siya ng low-cost housing. Yun ang problema kasi talaga NHA ang maliwanag na sole housing construction body.
But it's a fact now that meron tayong yung condominium projects nga
4PH.
under DSUD, and which agency is conducting the bidding for the contracts of the building of these condominium projects? Di ba si DSUD? Hindi, si DSUD?
Should just coordinates, they don't do that.
My understanding is it's the LGU that is bidding out the contracts, not the SUD,
Okay.
because it is outside of their mandate as a policy-making body.
So it has become an LGU.
There's a great deal of confusion because they couldn't find any money.
May I ask for a
At
minute
the
suspension,
outset,
Mr. President?
I believe that at the outset, there was hope that they would be able to raise financing. Later on, very little financing was available. They started tapping private developers and aligning them or matching them with LGUs.
Okay, ganito. There is already a condominium project being built in Negros Occidental. Meron nata, Bacolod. Ayan, okay. If just in case our resource persons know the answer, sino nag-bid out ng project na yon?
Actually, the NHA people are not aware. They're not really clear as to who
So-
bid it out.
Can I ask for a minute suspension, Mr. President?
Session suspended.